in-depth race recaps.
He's shown speed, he's shown dominance at other racetracks.
Pit stops and strategy.
Hell yeah, boys. Let's go. Race strategy, man.
Fantasy racing insights.
Talking about being a team in the summer. We did it. Good job, boys.
Your weekly home for everything Ryan, Blaney, and Team 12.
Good job, Timmy. Here's to many more, fellas. Thank you.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Let's go race for a championship.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 204 of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. This week, we are here to break down Ryan Blaney's top 5 run in the Bass Pro Shops night race at Bristol Motor Speedway. Steve, welcome back for another episode of the show. Off this fun, chaotic, unpredictable, long race, night race at Bristol Motor Speedway. One that you should be pretty familiar with because you were at a spring race in 2024 that was very similar to this race right here. Different time of day, different time of year, nearly the same result. But all in all, through all of the chaos, I mentioned it, a top 5 run for Team 12 in the final race of the first round of the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. So the team has survived, but not everybody has survived that cut. And we'll go into that as we go through our recap. So what did you think just overall 30,000 foot view of the weekend at Bristol?
How many caution laps were there out of 500 laps?
137, which set the modern era record for number of caution laps. And there was only 16 cautions in this race. There was another race at Bristol that had like 20 cautions or something like that, and like way fewer laps. But I know Denny's show was talking about like the actual time, and they mentioned it was like 2+ hours under caution.
Yeah,
because I think like the laps they were running for the majority of the race were like in the 17-second bracket. If like they could go all out, they could run in the 15. So imagine what that would be when they're under caution, probably running half that speed or double that speed, I should say, I guess, or time. And then multiplying that, and it goes over 2 hours something. So pretty interesting. And I just felt like they were trying to burn laps on purpose, but
on purpose.
NASCAR claims that they weren't. So I don't know.
And here's why they're doing it on purpose. Okay, they had some extra tires ready to go, obviously, right? Although Goodyear, during the race, to their credit, had to mount and balance all those tires. And they were doing it. They kept showing it on TV. Those guys were going crazy over there. And you got to imagine 30+ teams, almost 40 teams, and everybody needed at least one more set. And they were going to get one more set. You know, think about how many tires that is. And that wasn't going to be enough if they would have ran less caution laps. If they ran less caution laps like they should have, they would have been short at least a set of tires, if not 2. And then you would have been into real mayhem. So, because I don't think they would have been able to put another set together quick enough. You know what I mean? It took them half the race to get those ones put together. Surprisingly, they should have just had them put together to begin with, knowing that I want to say they kind of knew there was going to be an issue. They didn't know
if they knew temperature-wise. If it got to a certain temperature, we'd be in this boat.
Yeah. So. Instead of laying rubber down, it was shredding them. And that was exactly what we talked about last week. You know, is that the temperature, and if it was at the right temperature, and it was, Friday's practice, what Ryan runs 60 some laps.
It's a long.
And he didn't have any problems that we heard of. They told him if it felt like it at the end of it to hurry up and bring it in, but he just brought it in, just bring it in at that point. He didn't, so they knew what they were getting into. They knew what they were doing. And the number of caution laps really irritated me after a while. I've talked with my wife a couple times, came up with this idea. You and I both have gone to sprint car races, right? And dirt car races. And how many laps do they count under caution at a dirt race on a Saturday night?
None, and they even go back a lap when they go to reset. So
when they go to so I say from now on, starting next year, whenever you have to start it, so the rules are equal, that you get 2 laps under caution. The 2 laps you open pit road, because pit road, you can see things happen, and people, mess up a pit stop. They're competitive pit stops. You gain position, lose position, whatnot. Second lap of it, that you're open, all the guys that are a lap down or more can come in and pit. Same thing, same issues. Because there were tons of laps where they should just red flag the race instead. But it's not that they were doing it to clean anything up. They were doing it to just make sure. At the end of this race, when we get to the report, I'd have to count now how many laps it was from that last caution to where they restarted. If Ryan has 2 more laps, maybe 3, he was on the freshest tires. And a lot of guys took 2 tires. So there's a lot of things that if they would have done them just a little better, but they did this on purpose. And that's the saddest part, is they had to do it on purpose to keep it from looking like a real, what kind of show. And you were going to pick on me for driving me nuts, right?
Go ahead. Some of it I think I described you as being Chicken Little at the beginning, but then I will also say maybe this is more of what you're thinking though. I'll call you just a very selfish Ryan Blaney fan, in that you text me and we're talking about this, and I'm paraphrasing, but you're basically saying this is a disaster. They're not going to finish the race. They're not going to do all this stuff. And I said, like, after they get through the first round of pit stops, everyone's going to figure this out. They'll probably not go out there with super low air pressures. That'll burn the tires off even more. They're going to be careful, and we'll just like that spring race. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, and I think we may have even talked about this during that spring race too, when it went crazy, where I don't want to say you don't care about what the race was like as a whole. You care about how it impacts the 12 team and if it hurts their opportunity to win the race. So I think you didn't even care at all that it gives it an opportunity maybe to make this a little bit more racy. You just know that Ryan has a fast car, and this is going to mess up that opportunity. That's the thing, is that for 95% of the season, everybody is worried about how much speed they have and how good the car is set up to race under optimal conditions. And then you throw something like this in there where it has nothing to do with the car setup or the driver, except for how good he is at conserving tires. Now, don't be wrong. This time around, Ryan was ready for it. They were ready for it. The 54 car, if he has a one better pit stop, he may have been the guy to win the race. He was really good at it. But you heard a lot of complaining post-race from a lot of guys who weren't good at it, because, they were ready to race their car. People at Hendrick, that are complaining, is because their car may have been one of the better cars. And if they race a regular race, they're in the top 5 most of the night, and they're racing with 1 or 2 of those guys. Sure, there's less passing. Sure, there's less action. But there's also the dominant, car. And that's the thing about it, is when I start the race and you start second at the beginning of the race, and the guy who's on the pole, is not going to last that long, you think your guy can win from that point. And then it just never does that. Although it cycles through some things during the evening where the strategy is good and the pit stops are really good, and the driver does do a good job of conserving, and he gets himself back to the right spots by the end of the race, and by the end of the stages too. That's a lot more drama than I wanted, I guess. And I guess that's part of it. Is like, I want to say I had like an anxiety thing about it, but I did, like, when you're listening to, as we get in the race report, you're listening to the spotter say something 30 laps in about, I don't know what's going on. And then they see they're shredding, and, people are, who just pushed too hard were shredding, and Ryan's weren't really shredding, because he ran the first 55 plus laps, I think it was, before he pitted. And a bunch of other guys were shredding them, and it was surprising that there wasn't a caution early on just from that. But like I said, I was just like at a heightened sense at that point. Like, that's why I texted you right away. I'm like, this ain't right. This is not the way I want to see the evening go. I had a different vision in play, It went well though, so I can't complain in post, looking back at it. But man, it just, you prepare for a certain thing, and then you don't get that. So the temperature making that much of a difference. A lot cooler, but it was cooler, and those tires weren't laying rubber, they were shredding them, and it just,
yeah, it just didn't play out the way I was envisioned it, I guess. But like I said, I did one thing during the evening and it really helped. You know, it's a support
Our unofficial sponsor.
unofficial sponsor, 10 runner, was sitting next to me. I put a glass of ice together, and by midway through the second stage, I think I was doing a little better. The notes really didn't get real sloppy, but I at least kind of mellowed out a little bit and enjoyed what was happening because it was actually fun. That's the funny part, is that once you knew it was going to happen, well, then it was a lot of fun to watch, to see how they dealt with things, how they did things. And like I said, when we get to the report, you'll see that they did a great job all night long. The crew chief, the pit crew, and the driver did everything they could to manage it. Spotter, the backup spotter, they all did a fabulous job.
Yeah, I think all I will really say is in my opinion on the race is I thought it turned into an interesting race. I liked, for the people that really liked the old-fashioned Bristol, it did turn into a one-lane track where you were outside of the last move of the race because it wasn't executed properly. There were a lot of bump and runs. You saw Ryan nudge some guys out of the way because there's a certain way you could do it. That happened just because the way the PJ1 was set down on the track and the line that everybody was running. I'm there are a lot of people who were super quick to praise Goodyear. The only reason I'm not, and I won't, and one, I left that they threw the industry under the bus halfway through the race when they're mounting up the new tires, and the Goodyear representative was like, the industry wanted this, so this is what we gave them.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, they're just saving face for being a tire company and not wanting to, want this to happen on purpose. But I won't praise them because of the fact that it's temperature dependent, and it really seems to be track dependent. This is only happening on the concrete at Bristol at under a certain temperature. So I don't think that's a good thing, because what if it was unseasonably warm this weekend? We would have had the same race that we've had there the last 2 times we've been to Bristol since the crazy spring race. So I don't know particularly that they found something. All they found was that under a certain temperature, instead of laying the rubber down, it beads up and kind of disintegrates. And it looks like what it kind of looked like in the early 2000s and stuff, where there would be lots of marbles and things all the way at the top of the track. But even the consistency of that is different. So I'm not quick to praise them. I thought it circumstantially, it turned into an interesting, fun race after the first, I would say, 2 pit stops. I saw people complaining a little bit about how they were going so slow. It was also set a record for the slowest race. I don't know if it's ever, just at least at Bristol pace wise, running those. It was an average of 17 something second laps.
Seconds,
so that didn't bother me that much. It didn't really, honestly, it looked fast because of the comers and goers, because guys were moving fast by people. So that's all I will say, is I personally would have wished this is something that was more predictable, that they knew that was going to happen, and then it was more so just on the driver being in conservation mode and the team having a car that's set up to deal with that, because I think you would still have comers and goers if that was the case. But they just don't seem to be able to say, hey, when we come back here in the spring, this is going to happen again, because they came back here in the spring 2025 and it didn't happen. So I'm not sure. But all in all, it ended up being a good day for us. A good day. Brian did a great job already locking himself in about halfway through the race and coming home with the top 5. But all of that started off the weekend in this practice that we'll go through, and what happened that turned out to mean absolutely nothing. But we'll recap it anyway.
Yeah. So Friday, they go out in session 2. The session 1, the fast 5 in that were the 7, the 77, the 6, the 71, and 16. So there was a lot of Chevy speed in the early group, which was kind of interesting. And the top 4 in that group were between 15.307 and 15.313. That's that kind of gap. Of course, we're talking about a distance of a half mile that is the fastest half mile, and it's going to be like that. So some guys tried to run the top, and they tried it in session 1, but there was not much fall off there. So And then at that point, there were no real marbles. And this is something that Tim got on the radio and talked to Ryan about ahead of time. So when they're saying marbles, they were looking about during practice about how it was going to disintegrate. So also more shade was going to be coming in that second session too. So, they were looking at the track getting a little quicker as the shade come in. So when they went out, everyone was dragging a little bit early on, which always happens, even though they're only putting about 18, 19 cars out there at a time during those sessions. They got to get them all out there. You got to kind of get them up to speed and a gap so that you're not really up on somebody. But really early on, number one in group 2, 4 laps in. Just once they get rattling him off, he's the fastest car. Ran the same exact time as the 7 from the first group. So that was kind of interesting that there wasn't as much speed in the track maybe as we thought there'd be. The 7 was pretty good there. And early on in their group, the 19 was the next one back, and he was 0.021 back. That's how tight that was. And then the 11 was the third guy in the group, and he was only 0.040 a lap back. 10 lap average early on was P4 overall, but P1 in the group. 20 laps in, he starts passing cars. Then of course you check the 15 lap average, number 1, 20 lap average, number 1, 25, 30 lap average, number 1. So everything is like pointing toward let's race, and let's, get everybody else behind us. And even though, like I said, even though it's a minuscule gap between you and the second guy or the third guy, once you get that on the track and you get 30 or 40 laps in, then it's a second, then it's a second and a half, then it's 2 seconds, and on a nice long green flag run like that during a race, you get a 3 or 4 second lead, you lap a bunch of guys. I think the statistics said it was like 84 laps actually is what he ran in that practice, which is just amazing. It's, Haley ran 78 laps. So to run it with that much confidence, and like I said, came in. So they were thinking on the night that they were going to be able, if it went green the first stage, being 250 laps, that they would still, or not 250, 125 laps in the first stage, they would still be able to go pretty deep into the stage. And if something happened, then they'd be out in front of a bunch of people, So for qualifying,
what I was really optimistic about because of this practice specifically was that sometimes we see this team dominate those lap averages a lot all throughout the year. Especially when it gets to 20 laps and more. Sometimes it's not always the early laps, but when he does dominate those, it doesn't always translate to single lap speed. But we got both in this practice session, which was really exciting to see, because then you're like, they have an opportunity to qualify up front. So we're not just like, by the end of stage 1, they'll race their way into the top 10 because they've qualified 15th. There's a real opportunity here to get a great starting position, which we haven't always seen from this team, having that single lap speed and the super great long run speed.
Yeah, they go out like really late for qualifying, which is also always a good thing, right? And now they're in that groove, and now they're of course all the playoff guys go out later. But Allmendinger puts down a lap at 15.12. And they're on TV, they're talking about, later on in the session, we might get guys going below 15, But the truth is as the session goes, nobody gets near Allmendinger, not near enough, let's put it that way. Cindric puts a lap down, it's 15.13. And you think, well, that's pretty good. Let's see when Ryan gets to his turn, he's going to have the same stuff under the hood. And sure enough, Ryan puts a lap down that's exactly the, 15.12. Almost exactly the same, but speed wise, it was like 2/100ths a mile an hour or lesser than Allmendinger. And P2 on the board is super. You're going to get a good pit selection. You're going to get everything you need to do. For Saturday night's race, and nobody after them. As a matter of fact, a couple of guys went after him, didn't even get close, and qualified a little deeper in the field, which was even better.
One thing I will say, shout out to Allmendinger's team and Colleague Racing. That is a team that I wonder if the folks at RCR are scratching their heads, because that 16 car for pretty much all summer into now has been very fast and in contention. If they could figure out how to execute a race, they probably have a lot more top 10, top 5 finishes over this stretch. And even in this situation, he gets basically taken out by somebody else's misfortune a little bit later on, because I assumed like, oh, AJ, and this did kind of happen. He's basically the first guy that will go through in this race that realizes the tires are bad.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, he'll be up front for a few laps. He'll fade to the back and we'll never see him again. Now that does end up happening at first, but much like the 54 and like the 12, they keep finding their way back up front throughout this race. So again, kudos to them and whatever they're doing. If that colleague team can figure out how to actually execute an entire race, because if it's not something that happens on track, they have a bad pit stop, they speed on pit road, like something, weird happens that doesn't always happen to the elite team. So kudos to them, but I bet it's driving the 3 and the 8 drivers crazy trying to figure out how suddenly the sister team down the hill is outperforming.
Yeah, it should. So we get to Saturday night stages of 125, 250, and then 500. 10 sets of tires to start the night. Ends up being 11. Pits fuel of 178 to 190, which I didn't really realize they could get that many laps out of a fuel tank. They're never going to need it, but to go that deep. Pit stall 23. Now, it's interesting here is so he didn't get the first chance of the first stall, and AJ took the first stall, but Ryan takes what is essentially the same thing on the other side of the track. It is the first stall at the end of the backstretch, which would be turn 3. So if they're green flag pitting, they only have to go down one side, mind you. If they're pitting under caution, they come out of 4 and go down into the pits. So if they're under green, he would come off of 2 or just before he gets into 2 and go down and pit one side of the track. So the 47 is the car behind him, but there's nobody in front. So like I said, this makes everything really, really good for them pitting most of the night. AJ once again is the pole, and he takes the outside for the start. Ryan on the inside. At lap 1, the 54 actually gets by up there, and so now we're P3. And by lap 15 here, about a half a second back of the 16. And it's kind of interesting is we're riding, but we're not really riding because the lap times haven't slowed just yet. But lap 20, they're already into some lap traffic, and everyone is on bottom so far. So everybody's kind of single filed out, got themselves where they put the left sides in the PJ1 they put down. And lap 23 here, the 54 and the 12 past the 16. So now all of a sudden we got the 54 up front. Ryan is P2. And then lap 30, I make a note about guys pitting ? Because I see a car or two go down pit road. And we passed the 54 to get to P1 at this point too. So lap 35 here, lots of right fronts courting. And Tim says to back off the pace. So they recognize it pretty quick. I mean, Tim had said something on the radio, but I don't know what's going on. And but it took them, within a couple laps, they figured it out that you got to just back it off. Lap 40 here, they literally were running 18-second laps at lap 40. Not even 17. They went to 18 just to make sure.
I like you hear it's Tim is like kind of, I don't want to say describe it as frantic, but just because he has to keep spotting, but he's also communicating with Jonathan on channel 2, like, hey, if you needed me to tell him to do something different, let me know here, because Ryan is the one that's doing a really good job while everybody else seems to be kind of falling back as this goes. But I just like, I mean, I guess I didn't like it, but it was just like one of those chaotic feelings and chaotic starts. But like I said earlier, I was like, okay, we know this is happening again. Mm-hmm. But what happened last time is they figured it out and everything was better, at least by halfway or something. So I wasn't too concerned.
Well, the 12 figured it out quickly. When that's the main thing, is because the first time around it did not work well for them. I had last year they had an issue or two and had to pit.
Yes,
so
they learned their lesson. Yeah, because they were on the pole for that one, and
yes,
it did not go well. Yeah,
not go well. I mean, they still came back and got a top 20 out of it, but it wasn't like this one. So lap 63 here, the 54 and the 24 pit. or they pass. I'm sorry, the 54 and the 24 passes. So we're in P3 here, and then we go ahead and pit, and it's a 10.060. They come out in 24th, one lap down. At lap 68, P23. At lap 72, we pass the 1 to get to 22nd. Still one lap down at this point. At lap 75, passing the 21 to get to P21. And this is when the 21 actually hits pit road. And this is the one thing I did say to you when we were texting about this that was kind of dangerous, is that some of these cars start catching fire with all the rubber that was gathering up inside there, clogging, brake ducts and doing whatever it was doing. And they had
like
yanked him out.
I was gonna say, like I said to you too, and this probably didn't help your anxiety. And I was like, yeah, we've seen this before at these high wear tracks, and I'm like, usually it's just the Ford, so I'm like, that probably didn't help. and we do see the next few cars that it happens to mostly are Fords the rest of the night. So fingers crossed, basically at this point.
Yeah, I don't know if I have it in my notes, but there's a point later on where they give Ryan some instruction about what to do to try to keep the fire from happening. And he leaves pit road later on at one point where it's on a little bit of a thing, and then it kind of goes out as he gets out of there. So the 54 is leading, and lap 80 here, we get a caution for the fire. So it took them 5 laps to figure out they should call a caution, which was kind of bad. Excuse me, because the car was sitting there on fire. It wasn't like they pushed it out of the way or anything. It was on pit road, and if somebody else was going to have to pit, and it wasn't actually sitting in the box all the way.
That was the biggest problem. I think if it was in the box, they would have been okay, but he couldn't see, so it was like halfway outside the box, and I think they didn't have a choice. And I was like, well, I mean, now I'm a little bit down because I'm thinking this is going to be really bad.
Yeah,
because he's a lap down, but obviously things work out. So.
Yeah, so P21 lap down here, but of course some of the leaders are going to pit, so you're going to get a wave around here, and they do restart lap 94 here with the 54 leading, and Ryan is in P11 on the lead lap. So he waved around. So many guys pitted. Some guys didn't. That's the funny part. Some guys took tires instead, figuring they'll get to the end of the stage then and take the wave around or something. I don't know. It was really
that's right. Goofy. We had that conversation because I was asking you. I was like, how is he a lap down in 21st, takes the wave around, it ends up almost in the top 10. And then we kind of talked, because I was like, the math isn't mathing on this.
Yeah.
And then we talked it through, and then kind of dawned on us like, oh, other guys ahead of him that were a lap down decided like they can't risk this.
Yeah.
And took tires instead. So that just kind of vaulted him up. But
mainly because of how long they were able to run on the tires, first set of tires. So they ran a lot longer than everybody else on that first set of tires. And because of that, because he was able to conserve them, he didn't have as many laps on this set of tires that he's going to take the wave around on. A lot of the other guys had older tires, and they had to pit and remain a lap down right at that point. So, the lap 98 here, they restart lap 94. And at lap 98, we pass the 6 to get to 10th. At lap 100, we get a caution for the 48 who hit the 35. And we come in again. We're going to get tires here. So stop here, and the 54 is the lead here, taking the top. Ryan taking the top. And on this restart at lap 106, we get all the way to 8th. At lap 108, passing the 42 to get to 7th. We pass the 16 also to get to 6th. At lap 112, passing the 23 to get to 5th. At lap 113, passing the 24 and the 17 to get to P3. At lap 116, passing 38 to get to P2. Lap 123, we're battling with the 54 back and forth. We lead a lap, they lead a lap. Then all of a sudden coming to the green checker for the end of the stage, and Ryan wins the stage. Fabulous, the way everything played out, because like I said, because he was able to run longer than a lot of the other people early in the race, because they backed off as quickly as they did. It really helped him strategy wise to get himself back up to the front there. And
they could just burn this set. He could be one of the few that could actually go, because I believe the 54 was kind of already up there. It was basically Ryan passing his way through the field to do that. And I think outside of maybe the end of the second stage, were probably maybe I guess that last final 4 laps they were able to run at the end. This was probably the best racing of the night. Just seeing the 12 come all the way through the field, and seeing the broadcast people were they weren't really sure Ryan was going to be able to get there, and then he did, and then they were pretty amped up about him kind of making that last pass to get it. And obviously I was too, because in the playoffs, boom, another playoff point that goes.
Another playoff point, and needed 15 points to start the night. Needed 15 points to lock yourself into the next round. So that was 10 of the 15 right there. Talking about being a little bit tight here, and the stop is a 4-tire stop kit, and it's about 11.040 here. Now they go in first, come out eighth, eighth here, fifth. Anyway, the 54 and the 38 took 2 tires, which was crazy. I don't know how that worked out for some of these guys. Jonathan asks how hard he ran till the end there to kind of judge the tire wear. So you knew there was a shorter run. How hard did he run? Let's see what the tires look like so we know what we might be able to do later. The 5 car's having some issues at this point. And Jonathan says, we want to go about 40 to 50 laps right now, depending on the pace. So they're not right now. They're just talking about the pace, talking about it's only going to be 40 or 50 laps. Everybody's going to be on the same kind of schedule probably.
I was going to ask you what you just mentioned. And I mentioned to you, we didn't really have a chance to discuss it during the race, but the fact that a lot of even his teammates, the 2 and the 22, the 54, almost everybody else had 1 or 2 pit stops where they took 2 tires, but the 12 took 4 every time. And if I was going to question it, maybe I don't think it would have actually helped on the last pit stop not because of what happens on the last pit stop, but because of how other people strategized it as well. But I thought for sure, somewhere along the way, because from other stuff that I've seen, the left sides really weren't wearing. So I'm just more surprised they didn't take the chance, or I just wasn't sure.
It never works. It never worked. I mean, it not works, but it never worked over the course of the evening. It never really netted you anything. Like you said, maybe at the end, maybe especially if you knew that it was only
20 may have won on the 2, but there was only 4 laps to go. So
that's what I was about to say. Maybe if you knew there was only going to be 4 laps, and that's another thing. When they pit at that point, they thought there'd be more than 4 laps. When they come off a pit road, there is a statement that Ryan says, "What are we doing? Let's go! Come on!" Because he knows he's not only got 4 fresh tires, he's got 4 stickers, which almost nobody had, except for I believe the 67. Like I said, we'll get to that at the end, but. So we're going to start stage 2 here. The 54 taking the top, Ryan taking the bottom on row 4, restarting at lap 137 here. The 23 takes the lead away from the 54. Ryan gets to 9th at lap 140 here. The 54 gets the lead back at lap 147. We get a caution for the 71, the 47, the 43. Only 16 cars on the lead lap at this point, and that kind of fluctuates a little bit because some guys end up doing wave rounds and other things when they can get away with it. But by the end of the race, it's going to be real interesting how many are left. Johnson's staying out, too early to use up a set of tires. And they also know at this point, this is about the point where NASCAR tells them there's another set coming. Now, they're not going to release that set until they've got them all ready for all the teams, too. So for this next choose, the 54 taking the top, Ryan taking the top, restarting lap 155 here. We passed the 42 and the 38 to get to 5th, and then lap 158 past the 24 to get to 4th. At lap 163, we passed the 16 to get to 3rd. At lap 166, the Hurricane is coming on fresher tires, and he comes by, but we passed the 23 at the same time, so it's kind of a net 0. We get past, but we pass a guy, so back to P3. At lap 185 here in P3, about 7/10 back, but they're running 17.29 second laps. So they're like I said, 2 seconds slower than where they were for qualifying. At lap 190, Tim says guys are starting to have issues who pushed it here. So some of the guys who were running too fast are starting to have problems, and that kind of starts a pit cycle. At lap 198, Tim says you have 50 on your tires. At lap 205, only 5 cars are on the lead lap. And at lap 208, the 54 pits from the lead, and Ryan says it's starting to get really bad. And at lap 211, they go ahead and pit. So it kind of let Ryan dictate a little bit.
Yeah.
But they go as long as they can, you know.
And that's what they talked about under that last caution. They basically said, Jonathan said, hey, we're going to let you go until you tell us you have to come in. And when Ryan says that, he says, okay, come in. Come bring it to us. So,
yeah. And it's a 9.620 stop. And what's great about this, the way it worked, green flag pitting, like I said, only one side of pit road. He comes out into P7, only 6.70 back from the lead, who's the 48 at this point. So some of the other guys in front of him are pitted, and you know, and net cycles out really well for him. At lap 215, we passed the 47 to get to sixth. At lap 220, the 77 is taking the lead, but Ryan's P6, and he's about 6 seconds back, 6.4. Now I got a thing in here. The 77 took 2 tires. So this is one of those situations. On his green flag stop, he took 2 tires to help him get to the front. Doesn't really work out for him, like I said, once again, in the long run, but it was a 4.980 stop for him. So you got to think about that in track position. Like, so he almost a 5-second stop, and Ryan is 6 seconds behind him. That's how he got there, not because his car was a lot faster. Lap 227 here, the 54 takes the lead back, and then Ryan's P6, and he's about 4.8 seconds back of the lead. Lap 230, only 15 cars on the lead lap after that cycle. Lap 238, we get a caution for the 88. Ryan says we're really tight right there. So they were trying to loosen the car up here, and it's a 9.840 stop. They went in 6th, come out 5th. The 47 also stayed out and leads. So it's, I don't know what you know, once again, this is something that could work out strategy wise for the 47 if cautions fall the right way and he has a set later that, you know, but it doesn't seem to work for him. Tim basically says we don't want to be behind him on the restart, but the 47 takes the top, and Ryan takes the top couple rows behind him. So the restart on lap 240. Yeah,
gained like what 3 or 4 rows by doing it, and I think they said you got to take that. So
you got to take it. So restart lap 246 here, sorts to P3 here. At lap 248, we passed the 48 to get to P2, and you know, 2 laps later, the 54 wins the stage, and Ryan's P2. So now we have 19 points. So we needed 15. We're already into the next round, and you know, they you know, Ryan says I need like two more numbers of to loosen it up more. You know, pit road opens at lap 258. Finally, I have finally written down because they wasted a bunch of laps here. And they take 4 tires here, a 10.840 stop. In P2, out P4 here. Ryan asks about the cut line. There's about 8 cars who stay out at this point too. So this really just jumbles the field up a little bit. The 19, the 20 also took right sides only. So the 2 spots they lost on pit road weren't because of the pit crew. They were because somebody took 2 tires, 2 teams. You know, and you know, Jonathan tells them we did a decent adjustment here. So he tells them they took a pretty good swing.
Because Ryan's been complaining basically since he won that first stage tight. Like it's tight, it's getting tighter. I think there's a point when he says, I'm not sure what it is. It just feels different than it did earlier. I questioned, there was a point when during one of these runs through the field that Eric Jones, who was not our friend on the track, doored the heck out of him all the way down to the apron at one point early on in the race. So I'm like, maybe that, you know, even if your toe just changes just a little tiny bit, it can, you know, impact the handling of the car. So, yeah. But yeah, I don't want to say it's funny what happens after this, but he's been asking to get loosened up basically all night long. Jonathan basically at this point was like, all right, we're going to do it, and we're going to take a big swing at it.
Yep. Jonathan kind of says he'd like to go about 60 laps on a set of tires if we can here. So kind of gives him that. Basically what we're looking at is hopefully having an extra set or 2 of tires by the end, you know, and this is really what kind of works out that way. So, you know, tells them the same thing. We're going to do it like before, not going to pit you till you feel you're losing pace. So, and this is pretty good because he knows what he's got to do. He knows how he's going to do it, and he executes. He really does from the driver's seat. So 54 takes the top. Ryan takes the bottom from P12 here. Lap 265, they restart. Sorts to 14th. Then we caution at lap 269 for the 88. Ryan's in 14th. We're staying out here. The 23 is the only one who pits. Kind of using up some tires. Ryan's P13 here. 20 cars on the lead lap. 54 takes the top. Ryan taking the bottom here. Restart lap 276. Sorts to 16th. The 11 is kind of in the way, basically. He's kind of behind the 11. He's pinned there. At lap 279, the 19 takes the lead here. At lap 280, we get a caution for the 41, and we're in 15th. And Ryan says it's pretty loose in now. John says coffee. That's what you wanted.
And he kind of laughs when he says it, like kind of how you said it, because it's like he knows, like, I asked for this.
This is what I wanted. So some of the cars in front of Ryan do pit. The 11, the 48, the 54, and the 16. Or Ryan, is up to 11th here. The 19 takes the top. Ryan takes the top. Restart lap 287 here. Sorts to 6th. At lap 290, we pass the 42, the 77 to get to 4th. And then at lap 294, a caution for the 4. Ryan restart at lap 299 here also after that, and it sorts to P4. So then we get a caution at lap 310, and this is the 9 and the 42 and the 11. And I think this was where's the 9 kind of his day goes off. That's it. That point.
Yeah, this was a huge hit. So I've heard Denny say, the broadcast said that Denny hit the 42 into the 9. Denny says the 42 hit the 9 and then bounced back into him. Regardless, the 9 takes a sharp right-hander directly into the wall. And in his interview at the care center, he thinks it's all over. And the reporter is actually trying to tell him, like, no, you're good as long as somebody new doesn't win. He's like, oh, well, the pit stop cycles have been all over the place, so it probably just isn't reading right. Like, he at that point thinks that he's done playoff wise, which there was an opportunity here with, as we see the rest of the race with the 77 and the 48 and some other guys that are below the cut line have a chance to actually win because they are running up front and consistently up front throughout the night. So his biggest threat really at that point was the 48. So that was I think I said the 77 earlier. He's not in the playoffs, but the 48 though was like his biggest concern because everybody else was pretty much out of it at that point. But it was a legitimate concern because that was a car that ran up front a majority of the night. Yeah, kept things interesting though. That's why this Bristol cutoff race throughout the years has been quite interesting. You've seen Joey get knocked out of the playoffs here unexpectedly. Cindric is just teetering on that bubble this whole race. And with what happens to him, it's kind of crazy too. So much like that Daytona cutoff in the regular season, even at a normal Bristol race, which this wasn't one, there still manages to be a decent amount of drama.
Yeah, so now Tim tells them this could be a little bit of a long caution because of the cleanup. So they're kind of anticipating that. And Ryan, I wrote this one thing down. Ryan asks Tim if Freddie's working tonight. Because there was a point in time during this last run where he was behind the 23, just banging on him. And normally, I think those guys would let them. Hey, he's got fresher tires or whatever. You got to let him go, or he's going to come. And it really didn't. It was kind of funny. And he says, "Oh, is Freddie working tonight?"
Bubba also was a point when he shot up a lane and then shot back down the track again, as if Ryan wasn't even there. And he's lucky Ryan let off a little bit. So yeah, that was interesting. It's not the first time. I said that I'll probably get back to Freddie because it's not the first time Ryan's mentioned his name and it gets back to him. So hopefully we'll see if he says anything on DBC or something about it.
And then at lap 317, we get the mystery spotter.
This was, and we have the audio here, but and if you. We also put a little video together of it that's on all of our social channels. That's kind of caught fire today. So we're just it's under caution, and honestly, because this is like a perfect storm of why this didn't turn out to be an actual big deal for the team. Because the caution laps are running so long, they've already had their communication and everything, so it's kind of just quiet. And Ryan's making laps, and then all of a sudden you hear this.
Hi, Ryan. Win this race.
Bob.
Get Bodie on the scanner. He found you on a scanner in the bus. Found out how to turn it on. Pretty smart. Pretty awesome.
Oh man, that was fantastic.
Tim says awesome. It's fantastic. They knew they were already into the next round of the playoffs. You know, that's the other thing that was great about it at that point in time. But how smart is that kid? You know, he figured it out and knew what to do, and gave those words of encouragement to get his uncle to the end. And
So
he's Uncle Ryan for the rest
yeah.
of the season now, by the way.
That was Ryan's nephew, Bodie, who is one of Emma Conley's, and Ryan's sister, obviously, Emma Conley, formerly Emma Blaney, son. And we think that both boys, Louis is also, we think they're in cahoots here.
In cahoots or something.
Because, yeah, they found the scanner, and we've heard some of the backstory a little bit that they'd asked about it earlier in the day. And Ryan would just had answered the question about what it was, and they put that in their memory banks. They remembered a little bit later on, and then suddenly, mid-race pep talk from nephew Bodie telling Ryan to go out and win the race. So I thought
win this race, Uncle Ryan. It was so awesome.
But as I was saying, it was just the perfect timing, like you said. They'd already advanced to the next round. It was under like a long caution period. The team had already had their communications together. So it's part of me too wonders if one of them was even, smart enough to know that, this is my chance.
Mm-hmm.
Because imagine if this happens any other time, like live, like while, Timmy's trying to spot or something. So, but I don't know. These kids, their dad is a former sprint car. I don't know if you say former, he still might do some racing, but a sprint car driver. And he did run a little bit of NASCAR too. So they've grown up around racing too, a little bit. So maybe they're smart enough to know when, like, this is our chance, this is our opportunity to talk to Uncle Ryan.
I think they ought to sneak one more in before the year's out, and like during pre-race, when they run the pace laps before pre-race, and then Roger gets on there and Roger says something, and then he says something back to the boss, and right after that, they would just jump right in there, right after Roger.
I just have to say, like, if anything, if Ryan did have any anxiety about the finish to this race or whatever, I bet you that like reset him.
Yeah,
gave him a different outlook for the rest of
the chuckle and the laugh was just everything. And, he says in there, pretty smart kid, it's really great. So black is the pit call here. They're going ahead and pit, and it's a 9.68 stop. And the 23 is lead here. Ryan is in P12. And Jonathan says something about code sheet number next to white times 10. So I don't know what that is, but it's something that, I don't even know what that is. That's a different one that I've ever heard. But the 11 here took two tires. 23 taking the top, Ryan taking the bottom. Restart at lap 327 here, sorts to 10th. At lap 330, passing the 60 to get to 9th. At lap 331, passing the 2 to get to 8th. The 19 is leading at this point. At lap 334, passing the 6 to get to 7th. At lap 337, passing the 77 to get to 6th. The 77 waved him by. In-car camera on this was great because Ryan tried to shuck him once or twice from behind, and he held pretty good, but he realized he wasn't as fast as the car behind him, and you could see this arm like coming out the side, like, come on, And he's like, he waved him by quickly. So we get to lap 347 here, passing the 23 car to get to 5th, and at lap 354 we get a caution for the 47. And it looked like the 23 may have helped Recchi there do his spin house trick right there on the track. So, they do.
23 was actually kind of desperately trying to get to pit road. I think he was his tires were shot. And that when he hits the 47, he's actually the 40, or Bubba has his hand out the window trying to tell people he's going to pit. Mm-hmm. And as he did that, he drifted up the track into the 47. So it just kind of spins the 47 out. So I think Bubba's trying to drive with one hand going through that turn with a tire that's potentially going down, and it's just unfortunate for Ricky.
Yeah. So they do pit here. That's a 9.740 stop, and 4 cars stay out here. So, and then 3 guys took 2 tires. So, the 11, the 19, the 20, the 48 are the ones that stayed out. So, Jonathan says that we're still managing that number that we discussed before. So whatever the code language was, I think it had to deal with how many laps they're trying to get to on tires.
Yeah, I wanted to know. I kept guessing. I'm like, I mean, well, in practice they ran a ton of laps. Early on in the first run of the race, they ran a pretty decent amount. I think they had run as much as 55. What I think is how long they got to it at some point on a set of tires. So it really just depended on. I think they're just trying to get to a certain number to where they know like this is basically going to be our last set of tires we're taking here, and we're gonna run it to the end. Which I think the 22 actually was on a similar plan too. Late caution kind of ruins that, but yeah, I wondered what that was. I wish I knew like what they were thinking.
What's crazy to think about this is if they would have ran 150 to 200 laps without a caution in this last stage, they were able to go longer than almost anybody else on a set of tires at the slower pace. And it would have been interesting to see, basically probably would have lapped the field and to put a lot of guys 2 and 3 laps down because they would have probably pitted one less time than everybody else.
Yeah,
once again,
Penske cars were set up good for it because I think the 2, even the first run, the 2 went the longest at like 60 something laps.
So yeah. But it was never going to happen with this kind of, cars are going to blow the tires. Cars are going to hit each other because of the tires. So we're P10 for this restart. The 11 taking the top, Ryan taking the top, restarting at lap 360. Sorts to 11th here. The 19 takes the lead away. At lap 364 here, we get a caution for the 5, and it looked like the 47 helped him along. Ryan says this is the dumbest race I've ever been involved in. Just trying to shrug it off, I guess. The 11 does pit here, but so Ryan's in 11th, the 19 leading. The 19 taking the top, Ryan taking the top, restart lap 371 here, sorts to 11th at lap 373, passing 71 to get to 10th, and then we get caution at lap 384 for the 11 tire. He was on the 11 was on, the tire was on a roll. The tire was racing faster than the cars.
What's interesting about this situation is that the 11 had that tire on for a pretty decent amount of time.
Yeah.
And it didn't come off. And TV did a really good job of actually showing the tire did come off before the contact. They slowed it down enough to where you see the sparks happen, and then the 16 and 11 hit each other.
Yeah.
And it seems like that was more coincidence.
Yeah.
But this is what kills the 16's day. I was mentioning, so he's running back up towards at least relatively towards the front again. Yeah. And this just destroys his night that he was going to have a pretty decent finish if things worked out for them. But the 11. And here's I don't want to get on a soapbox right now, but here's something I would like to say, because something happens with our team here at the end that had little to no impact on the finish of the race for this team. But we're going to immediately on social media get these comments about it always happened. This always happens. They're always slow. They always have these mistakes. Over this last 10 races or so, we've seen disastrous pit stops by the 48 crew that eventually got them, I don't want to say fired, but swapped to another team completely. Yeah. The 22 has lost a wheel and had to come back, or at least had a loose wheel on pit road and had to come back. The 11 has had multiple. I think one they caught on pit road. This one, loose wheel, goes off onto pit road here. The 24 has had a loose wheel. Like, this is happening all over the place, and it's been a super solid year for our pit crew. And then it just kind of irks me sometimes when it seem to have this, ever since the change happened at Talladega, there's been no disaster stop until it really happens later on. That again, luckily doesn't really impact things. But
it's not really disaster.
When is this ever not going to be like the one thing that I'll see? It wasn't as big as it usually is still, but I'm just pointing out here, look, again, the 11 team, known as one of the best pit crews on pit road, has had a lot of problems this year because these teams, some of them that are considered the elite teams that are pulling off at consistently, sub 9-second pit stops, this is what happens.
Yeah.
They will have catastrophic stops from time to time that completely take them out of races. So I just want to point that out again, that, hey, look, the 48, the 5, the 24, the 45. The 45's had multiple. The 45 is one of those guys that's had to stop in somebody else's pit stall to get their wheel tightened.
Yeah.
The six, Brad's team has had to do it. They've had multiple, so it's like,
Yeah.
anyway, it wasn't that big of it. I don't know why. I just felt like bringing that up, but I'm just going to point this out. We don't see that happen too often with our crew.
So Jonathan says staying out will be best for our tire situation, and they got 3 cars in front of Ryan here, pit. So we're up to 7th there. The 19's lead taking the top. Ryan taking the top. Restart lap 397. Sorts to 7th here, let's see here. We get to lap 402 here, the 38 passes. We're in 8th. At lap 404 here, the 22 and the 20 pass. We're in 10th. At lap 408, 77 passes. We're in 11th. Lap 413 to 54 takes the lead. At lap 422, we're in P10 and the 60 is pitting. Now we're starting to cycle. And at lap 425, the P9 is the 17 pits. 3 laps later, the 48 pits. We're up to 8th. The 54 then pits. We're in 7th. At lap 433 here, the 19 pits. We're in 6th. The 6 does lead at this point. At lap 436, we're up to P5. At lap 348, P4 with the 38 leading. At lap, let's see here, 341 here, we do pit. This is a 9.920 stop. The right front is on fire as they leave pit road. I was like, boy, I hope that goes out quickly. They come out P12, 1 lap down, and I have here really written down 1 set left, but I don't think they've gotten their other tires yet at this point.
And is this when they actually take scuffs, but we don't really know it?
Yes. I believe this is this point here because they take, yes. Here's the thing. They have 1 set left, but they use the scuffs at this point. And like I said, Ryan doesn't know
publicize it though. I don't even think Ryan knows. Yeah.
Ryan does not know. He does not know till the next situation. So at lap 449 here, the 6 is leading. Ryan's in 11th. At lap 452 here, we pass the 67 to get to 10th. At lap 460 here, the number 2 is on fire on pit road. At lap 462 here, P9, 7.5 seconds back of the 6. At lap 465 here, the 77 takes the lead. Ryan's P9. At lap 470, we pass the 22 to get to 7th. At lap 472, pass the 48 to get to 6th. At lap 473, pass the 77 to get to 5th. If it stays green, he's doing really well here.
I think I think we're going to the end, which now at that point I thought we took the stickers. So yeah. I'm like, okay, now knowing that they're on scuffs here, part of me wonders now, was the strategy actually they were going to come back in one more time and get the stickers? Because you do see other teams do this, and the 77's one that does make a big charge. And I think the 77, we'll talk about it. I'm jumping ahead, but I think he could have won the race if it stays green. But it doesn't work out that way. So I'm like, man, we're gonna Joey Logano this. We're gonna run this thing to the end, and maybe try to. I don't want to even say steal it because he's run up front all day, but he hadn't been leading in a long time at this point.
Yeah. So at lap 475 here, passing 38 to get to 4th. At lap 478 though, it's 6 seconds back of the 6 car leading. So lap 480 here, like I said, still about 6.3 seconds back. At lap 41 here, passing the 19 to get to 3rd. At lap 482 here, about 4.7 seconds back. So within 2 or 3 laps here, the 6 is backed off or he's lost some grip and Ryan's catching him. At lap 488, we get the caution for the 23 and the 41. There's only 8 cars on the lead lap at that point, which is something huge to note here. 8 cars on the lead lap, and they're going to pit. The 77, the 22, and the 38 are out of tires. So they're going to try to stick it out.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying the 77 actually before this caution was coming up on us or on the 12. So I'm like, there's a decent amount of time left here. Like he's finally actually going to do it. Yeah. And it's going to be a very 77 style track for him to do it at, as far as like the persona he's trying to deliver. And honestly, it would have been fine if he did win or whatever, because kudos to them on that strategy. But this caution doesn't only hurt Ryan, it hurts him super, but it also hurts Ryan, because I thought he was going to have a chance to win too with this.
Well, I think Ryan was going to win the race at this point once they come in and they get these tires, and then he comes off pit road and finds out they're stickers.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, it's lap 488, so you got 12 laps to go. If they restart with 7 or 8 to go,
yep,
that's a lot of laps, and you're starting only a second or two back, and you're going to be that much faster than those guys up front, as long as you can get by people without anything bad happening. But they waste a bunch of laps. And here's another thing. The 6, the 20, the 22 take right sides. They don't even take 4. The 77, the 38, and the 48 stay out. So that's 6 of the cars on the lead lap right there. The 67 was the only other guy who had a set of 4. So it's him and the 67 back there, starting like 7th and 8th.
And this is where we did, if you want to mention it, they did have a bad, what you would call, there was a mistake on the stop. The jack drops too early, and the front tire is not tight. Yeah. So they call Ryan to back up. Let's tighten it. But with what you just said, 3 guys took 2 tires, 3 guys stayed out on the track. That's 6.
Yeah, he lost.
All those people were going to jump him. So
he lost 1 position.
Yeah,
the 67 was the only other car who took 4 tires on that whole thing, and that was the only one. So he lost basically 1 position.
Now,
but for
the only argument you could say is, well, why didn't they try to take 2? If they take 2 here, maybe he restarts 6 or something. Like, it wasn't going to be a huge, and they hadn't taken 2 all night. So I think maybe they weren't sure how their car would react to it. So yeah, if anyone that did complain about like, oh, the pit crew cost him the race, he lost 1 spot because of what happened.
The one thing that I saw, the one that you replied to, the one guy was like about the crew chief costing the race. That's the guy I want his head on a pike, because this was a great call by the crew chief all night long. Jonathan got him to the end of this race with a set of sticker tires on the lead lap, and nobody else had that. So that's a crew chief right there. That is a great call right there. So that guy, whoever he was, and I don't remember the name, and I saw that you replied, which is nice. That guy got issues, because that's the move you make, and that's what puts him. Like I said, the problem with the end of this race is that there's not enough laps run. They burn all the way to lap 296 for the restart.
Yeah, 4 laps to go on the restart. Yeah. It killed me, because I looked up. I was like, there's got to be plenty of time. And I look up and see how many left. I'm like, oh, I think in our Discord chat, I immediately say, sorry, guys. Unfortunately, I think we're just battling for a top 5. No.
So first off, the 77, the 38, the 48 stay out. So that's 1, 2, 3. The 6 and the 20 and the 22 take the 2 tires. So the 20 passes the 3 guys with 2 tires in this final 4 laps, right? So he's the guy ends up winning from there. Ryan, starting in the 4th row, gets himself by a couple of these guys that have no tires. And then, like I said, he gets turned at one point by the 67 a little bit, gets squirrely.
Crazy.
And then this is on the last lap. He goes from 5th to 4th by passing the 22 on the outside. So, 1 or 2 of the guys who, had a gamut of 2 tires that worked okay for, but the guy with 4 tires, if he has 2 more laps of green flag racing, I think he gets to the 20 easily and goes blowing by him. So the strategy was perfect. What was sucked about it is these cautions, and they ran them so long on purpose, because literally, they pitted at lap like 490, and then they waste another 6 laps. Why? They weren't cleaning up a mess or nothing. It was just
Yeah, that was unfortunate. I think a couple of things happened on this restart too that kind of hindered him from getting an even better finish.
Right.
He gets held up a little bit behind the 22, which again, I'm not going to blame Joey for not pulling over here. He's trying to race too. He's trying to get himself an opportunity. He's in the playoffs as well. That doesn't bother me, him racing him. It bothers me when he races him hard and, lap 50 or something of a race.
Yeah.
The save, getting, almost spun by the 67, who was probably just excited to be up there. He's had some pretty bad, finishes this year at his few cup starts. So I think that kind of hindered things a little bit. I've seen a couple of folks mention like lane choice as well, where I'd have to watch it again. But I think if you also have to remember that the 20 shucked the 38 into the 77, and it kind of killed the top lane for a minute there.
It screwed everything up.
And the 77 ended up getting passed by everybody on the bottom. So I don't even know if that would have been good as well. It just things worked out and things didn't work out on that final restart. What didn't work out, he didn't have a chance to win. But I said kudos to the 20 because I noticed the 20 all race long. I mentioned that I felt like he was kind of out for blood. He had a really good car. He could make a lot of really good moves. He was one of the guys that actually could be aggressive on tires. There were certain times when he did fall back after being a little bit too aggressive, but they played everything perfect. They got a good starting spot on that final restart. He moved who he needed to move to win the race. What did you think about the one thing that was brought up was the 6? The 6 had a shot to actually win. It wasn't going to be a clean win. No. And I don't think he cared at this point.
No, he doesn't.
But unfortunately, and I mentioned early in this race, Ryan executed a ton of bump and runs in this race. Maybe some of it was just banging on the bumper too and guys deciding to get up out of the way, but he physically moved some guys. And a lot of it had to actually do with just getting down and getting offset and hitting kind of like the left, outer part of the rear bumper to get people kind of pushed up out of the way. Brad dove that in there and hit the 20 square, and it kind of just actually punted the 20 forward, which we've seen that a lot with this car, that you can't really do that. Another thing that was also discovered kind of post-race is Bell said, I knew I was going to get hit. I slowed down and backed the corner up so he couldn't get me out of shape.
Yeah.
So that's funny. The leader actually is smart enough to know that if they slow down, they won't get loose, which is what Brad wanted to happen. If the 20 had sent it in there trying to avoid the 6, hitting him, and maybe the 6 does, maybe he does get up the track and the 6 wins. But that was an interesting thing. I'm glad, I'm glad Brad gave it a shot because, why not? I mean, he's a veteran. Who cares if people are mad that, he wrecked somebody to win or whatever? Honestly, I think being Bristol, people would have given him a pass and said, that's awesome that he went and won that way. Yeah. A really great race, honestly, start to finish for Ryan amid the chaos, amid having to keep up with things, adjust their strategies. Like you said, Jonathan, and I'd still want to know, was one of the triggers they could have pulled or levers they could have pulled at the end of that race to do what the 77 had attempted and get fresh tires right at the end and try to pass their way to the lead, which again, you may disagree with me, but I think that if it goes green to the end without that last caution, the 77 was coming. Yeah. And I think, because he'd made up a huge ground. He was pulling up like on Ryan's bumper when that caution comes out. I think if it goes the next 18 laps or whatever it would have been, I think he had a decent shot with a great strategy to do that. I just wondered if that was something the 12 was thinking about too, having stickers sitting. Because if not, he would have run all the way to the end of that race on scuffs, which would have been a Herculean effort to make it to the end. And I think he could have done it. Yeah. But maybe he finishes where he was, though. He may have finished just in the top 5, and maybe that's what they were aiming for. But but good day. Won a stage, got that playoff point, ran up front nearly all day long. Totally different, like you said, they learned from that spring race what not to do, where they kind of got behind the 8 ball. And kudos to them. Kudos to everybody on the team. And like I said, it was almost a flawless night for them outside of just a couple hiccups here and there.
Solid playoff performance. That's the way to think about it.
And they did. They executed just in this whole first round outside of Darlington not necessarily going their way. They still, I think they scored the second most points in the round. I think on the season, they've now scored the second most points overall. I heard that stat earlier as well. So that's something to be excited about. Again, for a team with 7 DNFs to have now scored the second most points on the year. Again, a lot of that has to do with stage points, but still, that's the game everybody's playing. So let's take a look now at the reseeded NASCAR Cup Series playoff standings as they head into the round of 12 now. First of all, we'll mention those that were eliminated included the 48 of Alex Bowman, who put up a valiant effort in this race and an opportunity or a chance to win his way into the next round. He falls out. Shane Van Gisbergen, who in the end, the other stat that we heard was that Austin Cindric only scored including his playoff points, 66 points in this round, which was the lowest total of points that someone has ever advanced on in this format. And SVG, if he had just averaged a 15th place finish in this round, which people were hoping they were going to be able to do to get to the Roval round, he would have advanced, but they didn't. So Alex Bowman, SVG, Austin Dillon, and Josh Berry, who had one of the worst playoff performances of all time, finishing dead last in all three.
He ran like 35 or 36 laps or something like that.
And only one of those was really his fault, I think. The other two, a fire and getting crashed. So unfortunate for them. That's a Team Penske affiliate, essential teammate that falls out of the playoffs here. I'm not sure if that car will go into full R&D mode the rest of the way. We've seen that with the other Penske cars in the playoffs as well. Where it's really assisted Joey or it's really assisted Ryan as they've made championship runs. So we'll have to see what happens there. So those are the four that have been eliminated. So now with the reset, Denny Hamlin is the new points leader at 26 points to the good. William Byron is in second. Kyle Larson is in third. Both of them are 24 points above the cut line. Christopher Bell, the winner, has 20 points to the good in fourth. Ryan is fifth now, 19 points over the cut line. Then it gets a little bit tighter here. Chase Briscoe in sixth is 10 points above. Chase Elliott in seventh is just 5 points above. And Bubba Wallace is on the bubble. Which, bubble. Anyway, people like to call him that. Plus one over the cut line. Teammate Austin Cindric is in ninth. He is -1 to the cut line. Super tight under the cut line here. This is where it gets interesting. Joey is in 10th, -2. Ross Chastain is in 11th, -2. And Tyler Reddick is in 12th, -3. I think because of that, you don't know who's going to advance out of this round because of how tight it is, basically from 6 on back with the way the cut line falls. This is like a matter of stage points. People, if Cindric and Joey and Ross and Tyler all get stage points in the first stage this week at Loudon and 4 or 5 guys in the top don't, there's an opportunity for that cut line to change automatically just within the first, quarter of that race on Sunday. So it's pretty phenomenal the points position that we're in right now. But again, at plus 19, Ryan's pretty good. When he was in the first round, I think he came in at plus 26 over the line. But as there are fewer cars in there, your advantage kind of shrinks a little bit. That's where getting that playoff point that he got. If without that, he'd only be plus 18 now. So he is plus 19 because of that. But this is when it'd be great to go out and get a couple more wins and get 5 more points that will help you as you go, and then get to that second to last round there, and then do what he's done the last couple of years and just won one of those races and didn't even have to worry about it. So
win 1 or 2,
So things have worked out that way as well. So that's where we sit now in the playoff standings. Again, Denny Hamlin is the leader. Ryan is in 5th, 19 points above the cut line as the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs heads into the round of 12. One last thing to talk about when it comes to Bristol Motor Speedway is the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. And after a couple of weeks of me being able to be excited, how I always heat up in the playoffs and do really well. Wow, this was back to one of my worst weeks of the year.
What happened?
Right out of the gate. A couple of different things happened to impact me here.
Yes.
So I'll go through my starters, and I did not touch this. I set this lineup on Saturday after qualifying. I sometimes set it up early in the week, but this time I waited. Christopher Bell, the winner, got me 40 points. This was the couple of the low spots here. Denny Hamlin got me 7. Thought he was going to be a lock. The guy ran away with the race earlier in the year. Ran away with the tire wear race. Which actually, if you listen to his podcast, he explains what the difference was between that race and this race, and it's kind of fascinating. 7 points, though, from Hamlin. Kyle Larson, 5 points. Again, both of the guys that have won the last several Bristol races got me nothing, basically. Ryan Blaney, though, was the number 1 points getter on the day with 52 points. And then Chase Elliott got me 1 point. So I had 3 guys in my starting lineup with 7, 5, and 1 point. This was my mistake, and it dawned on me later on that I think you were talking about this earlier in the race, but I had Ty Gibbs in the garage. And I didn't clarify that with you. Did you leave him in the garage as well, or were you saying and then you took him out? Or did you somehow just notice that I did?
I noticed that you had him in the garage.
See, I didn't know. I thought you like made a typo or something, and I was like, no, I'm like, Ty Gibbs is out front. And I remember like seeing that text and just like, no, I think he's okay.
I meant you.
I did.
He was in your garage.
So let it be known, Steve tried to warn me.
Tried to help
I
you.
did not listen at all. Left him in the garage, so I left 46 points in the garage. But in the end, even if I brought him in, it wasn't going to help me. I went 0 for 4 on the featured matchups as well. I had Cindric over Van Gisbergen, wrong. Chastain over Bowman, wrong. Elliott over Logano, wrong. And Josh Berry over Austin Dillon, also wrong. I had a measly 105 points on the weekend, 78th overall after a couple really solid weeks to kick off the playoffs for me. Yikes.
Yeah, I had Denny, was really not that many points. I did have Gibbs, and I had him in the lineup to start with. Allmendinger I had in the garage, but switched him with Larson at the point Larson was having troubles. And I thought that was going to be helpful, but it really wasn't. Byron was good for 33 points, and then I had Ryan. So and then I went 0 for on the picks also. I had everything, just every one of those guys just killed me on the picks. So I ended up at 144, which what was that? I don't even know where it placed. It wasn't like 40th or 34th or something like that. So
yeah, you ended up 42nd on the weekend, 144 points earned. So yeah, that was unfortunate.
Yes.
Let's take a look at the week, the top 10 in points earned this past week at Bristol Motor Speedway in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. And it kicks off with a tie for 9th between Montana 12 fan and Jason's the Best, 176 points. Three-way tie for 6th. Brock H., Blaney Biffle Martin 96, and Go 12 Go at 178 points earned. Blaney's Daisy was in 5th at 184 points. Sam Speedsters was in 4th at 187 points. Frank Fan 12 and Crafton Truck Series tied for 2nd at 188 points on the weekend. And Go Larson wins the weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway with 190 points. So a 2-point win over second place there. Now let's take a look at the overall standings in the league. I am 61st. I think I was 58th last week. 61st overall now at 4,875 points. Let's take a look at the top 10. The Daisy Dukes is in 10th, 5,373 points. Your team, Mez 12, is holding down the 9th spot, 5,376. Dr. Race Chaser is in 8th, 5,393. Jordan Daniels in 6th is tied with Blaney Kicks Beep at 5,426 points. Go 12 Go is in 5th at 5,434. Pit Stop Pro is in 4th, 5,453. Clyde's Chicken Pit Racing is in 3rd. A former champion has a shot here, 5,493 points. Fans 12 is in 2nd at 5,502 points. And leading the way still is Alyssa C., 5,546 points overall.
Now, one other thing. This was the end of the first round of the playoffs. They cut from 16 to 12. And I don't know if you're going to have talk about the Team Blaney podcast playoff grid challenge.
I was actually just pulled it up.
All right, good deal. Because only three people got it correct in the first round, which is really great. Now, how it goes after that, who knows? We'll keep an eye on that, but pretty good.
Yeah, I wanted to see. So my grid challenge, I only have 10 of my 12 picks advancing here. I was wrong about I had Cindric going out and Bowman going in, so that was wrong.
Yep.
And I had Chastain I had Van Gisbergen going in. I had bought into that.
Yeah, okay.
And that was wrong. So Chastain advanced, actually. So I initially had picked Cindric and Chastain to be two of the guys out, along with Austin Dillon and I forget who the other Barry were the other two that really did. So I only have 10 of my 12 advancing there. So did you? How'd you do on those picks?
Okay, I had 11 out of 12. Mine was Bowman, Cindric. Bowman and Cindric was the one I messed up. So right now tied for fourth with 110 points. Yours is tied. What's the 100 points go down to? It's
oh yeah.
Technically 100 points would be tied for 46th because a whole bunch of people are tied for fourth at 110. And then we do have three people that got all 12 right.
Which actually they didn't. So they still, I don't know how this works.
Don't click on the team thing because it's going to show you your team. It doesn't show you their team.
Oh, is that what happens?
That's
okay,
gotcha. Because I had the same thing, and then she showed me hers on her phone, and hers was correct. So yeah.
Oh, I understand. It's just showing me where that's weird how that seems like a glitch. Actually,
yeah, it's a glitch. Exactly.
Yeah, because it's showing because I'm clicking on Kate's right here.
Yeah.
And it says her name and everything, but it shows my pick. So, okay, that's interesting. So, so 3 of our folks here. So, Pi is so good, 186. C. Mez, part-time co-host, Kate Mez.
That's right.
And Shar 12 fan. All 3 of them are still alive with a perfect
12 for 12.
Perfect grid challenge situation there. So
I got you. I got you to buy into the Shane thing, and then I didn't do it.
I see how that goes.
See how that went?
All right, so that's where things stand when it comes to the variety of fantasy things that we have going on here between our Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League and the Team Blaney Grid Challenge League. So that's something that we'll be able to keep up with as we go, and we'll see how things go. But that brings us now to the next race, the first race in the round of 12 of the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs, and that is in Loudon, New Hampshire at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Things kick off coverage-wise on Saturday, September 20th. Practice and qualifying practice starts at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on True TV, on the radio, on PRN and SiriusXM NASCAR radio. Qualifying follows at 4:10 p.m. Eastern Time from New Hampshire. Just to note, when it comes to practice and qualifying, they are on a new right side tire for New Hampshire as well. It is one that they did test and allegedly is also going to have a decent amount of fall off. But again, on tracks that aren't concrete and they say there's going to be a lot of fall off, I don't know how much.
A lot different, a lot better actually, because it lays the rubber down. So
yeah, so I jumped ahead there, but yeah, that practice and qualifying 3 p.m. Eastern Time is when that covered kicks off on True TV. But earlier in the day at noon Eastern Time, we do have the Team EJP 175 for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. You can watch that on FS1, listen to that on the NASCAR Racing Network and SiriusXM NASCAR Radio. Xfinity Series is off this weekend, so that brings us to Sunday, September 21st, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We have the Mobile One 301 from New Hampshire Motor Speedway for the NASCAR Cup Series, streaming on the NBC Sports app, on cable, on the USA Network, in-car cameras, or on HBO Max, and then on the radio, you have to tune into PRN, SiriusXM, NASCAR Radio to watch the race. Ryan Blaney at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, 12 starts, 69 laps led. He has an average start of 9.3, not too bad. Average finish of 14.6, no DNFs, 4 top 10s, 2 top 5s. Unfortunately, the next gen era for Ryan at Loudon, finishing wise, has not been great. He did start off okay. No, that was still in the old car. So all 3 finishes here: 18th, 22nd, and 25th. One of these, I don't know if it was the one last year or the year before, was when Mr. Low Percentage.
Yes, Mr. Low Percentage
ruined a chance at at least a top 5, but potentially a win, because Ryan started the last 2 races in 5th and 2nd. Yeah, didn't end up leading any laps, but he was running up front with an opportunity here. So we have, Mr. Low percentage Michael McDowell to thank, at least for that that last one.
Yeah.
That's not what we're looking for here. But he did have limited success earlier on in his career in different generations of cars at New Hampshire. So what are you looking for this weekend? We have we're coming into the out of this first round of the playoffs where Joe Gibbs Racing has won with all three of the cars that they have in the playoffs.
Yeah.
We're heading to a track where historically guys like Christopher Bell and Joe Gibbs Racing run really well. The narrative in the last three playoffs has all been about Team Penske.
Yeah.
Has that narrative changed at this point now?
I think this is like a weekend that I just want to start every restart on the inside lane. I think this is a play it safe kind of weekend. Get a top 10 and get out of there. I don't even think to gamble on anything more than just running well, having good clean pit stops, getting like I said, the inside lane on, because it gets hairy on a restart there, and they get 3 wide, and you'll see a lot of guys this weekend on the inside bump the guy on the outside, spin him out, put him into the wall in that first lap or two on a restart. And that's all I'm really worried about, is just not being in that, just like Michael McDowell, Mr. Low Percentage did, where he's going to go way underneath somebody and try to make something happen. Well, we don't want to see any of that, need any of that. We just need to be the guy that's, if it happens to somebody else, fine. But that's the thing, is like, there are guys right now, when you look at them statistically, Ross Chastain's the one that just keeps coming up. Like, they don't have speed. At least they haven't really shown it in a while. He overperforms and outperforms the car more than anything else. So you just got to out-survive guys like that, because you have more speed than they do. You do. You're the best Ford out there, and just keep proving that every week.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an opportunity where Ryan could go out and win. This is one of those shorter, flat tracks. Mm-hmm. Ryan does a really good job of wrapping the corners here. So like you said, let's keep it on the bottom as much as they possibly can. Taking a look at the top 10 in this race last year, it's actually interesting. Christopher Bell did win. Chase Briscoe was second, which, man, again, you got 2 guys that are now teammates at Joe Gibbs Racing that have also won in the playoffs already, that finished 1-2 in this race last year. Josh Berry was third. Kyle Larson was fourth. Chris Buescher was fifth. Tyler Reddick was sixth. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. got a 7th place finish. John Hunter Nemechek, who has also run really well in the last several races here for Legacy Motor Club. We don't have to worry about this next guy in the 19, Martin Truex Jr., but that does show you here, you have the car and the current driver both finished in the top 10 last year. So again, if you're looking for fantasy people, maybe Chase Briscoe is someone that's a threat.
Somebody on the pole. Probably. And
Ross Chastain, just like you mentioned, he finished 10th here last year as well. Ryan finished 25th again after some of the incidents that he had, but he did, I think he did get some stage points at some point early on in the race. So, yeah, I think if I'm looking pre-practice and qualifying, the people that I'm looking at are the JGR cars. Where are you at on Hendrick Motorsports right now? It seemed like at was it Gateway? They had a little bit more of a glimmer of hope, but Darlington, they're out to lunch. Bristol, pretty much totally out to lunch as well, outside of the 48 car. They didn't show up. Kyle Larson was in 4th in this race last year, the only Hendrick Motorsports car to finish in the top 10 as well at Loudon. So, I mean, it seems like all the momentum, and they've been trying to downplay this from, Denny on down, that, it's not, the Toyotas, we don't want to be labeled as, the favorites right now, or we're fast or whatever, but I think you're going to have to load your lineup with some of these Joe Gibbs Racing drivers. And I don't know if this might be a start Ryan in the garage kind of a week, but
maybe it just depends on how qualifying goes for him.
That's true.
But because if they qualify in the top 10, then you want those stage points. That's the thing, is I look at who qualifies and can get stage points at the first stage break. The Hendrick thing is very interesting, and it's kind of stinks because I want them to survive. I hate to say this, but I want 1 or 2 Hendrick cars in the Final 4 because I know we can beat them at Phoenix.
At least in the fall race.
Yeah, based on every one of them. The Toyotas are the ones who actually have shown some speed in the last year or two at Phoenix. Then that we're looking long range. But yeah, right now there's something at Hendrick that's just not all there for everybody. The 5-car, like I said, they complained a little bit about the way this past race went because
the 24 crew chief did too.
Yeah. So they're struggling because they're looking for, they want a regular race, they want a plain race, they want something that doesn't use strategy. They're hoping that their pure speed shows up, but it's not there either. They don't really have quite the speed, definitely not quite the speed that the 3 teams at Toyota do, or 4 teams really, and they don't have what Ryan has either. So I'm okay with it. Just keep that going for the next 6 or 7 weeks.
I guess you're right. Yeah, it's weird for you to say for someone to say, yeah, I wish there were 2 Hendrick cars in the championship 4, but you're right, because looking at it, the 2 guys I don't want anyone near the championship 4 that are probably going to make it there are Chase Briscoe and Christopher Bell, both guys driving for basically the fastest team right now, and both guys that have wins at Phoenix. So, while Briscoe's was in a different car at a different time a few years ago, still, I mean, that guy is a sleeper. He led a bunch of laps at Bristol again.
Look what he's done now that he has the equipment. That's the thing. Look what he's done now that he has the equipment that he needed to have all these years. He's definitely doing what you're supposed to do with it. And it's good to see for him. It's nice.
So our thoughts, at least when it comes to the 12 team, is that Ryan has the ability, has the opportunity to win. He can, but there's some stout competition he's going to go up against. So you're right. We're going to have to wait and see how practice and qualifying goes. I think there's no doubt they can get a top 10. One thing I didn't mention was the fact that Ryan has actually matched his career mark when it comes to top 5s right now. He's hit 12. Yeah. He has 12 top 5s, 16 top 10s on the year. He has to get a little bit further along when it comes to top 10s to get to 20, which is career mark there. So we're going to have to see what happens when it comes to that a little bit later on. So again, if you want to tune in this weekend to the race at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, practice and qualifying kicks off at 3 p.m. Eastern time on True TV. And then Sunday, September 21st, 2 p.m. Eastern time, the Mobile 1301 from New Hampshire Motor Speedway on the USA Network. That's where you can follow along with that. Well, Steve, I think that pretty much wraps up this episode of the Team Blaney podcast. I'd like to thank you and everyone else for tuning in to this show. During the weekend on race day, you can find us on Facebook, X, and Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube as well. Just search for Team Blaney. We'd also like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Ryan's official charitable organization benefits brain health causes like UPMC Sports Medicine and the Alzheimer's Association. To learn more, visit RyanBlaneyFamilyFoundation.org or follow them on Facebook, X, and Instagram. So for my co-host, Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Uncle Ryan. Check out the TikTok.